A lot of fighters join UFC and immediately attract attention, but only a few manage to become really famous. One of the most popular fighters in the UFC right now, Conor, despite being down, still generates a lot of buzz with every statement he makes. Chimaev remains on the radar, but due to issues with weight and matchmaking, it's unclear what his future holds. Israel Adesanya stands out among all of them since he joined the company brightly, won the title just as brightly, and successfully defended his belt. Just recently, he lost his champion title in the fight against the principal enemy, Alex Pereira. For many fans, this defeat came as a shock, so the company did not miss a chance to support the rivalry by organizing an immediate rematch. On April 8, Israel is to prove to the entire MMA world that he is the true champion. For this event, we prepared a video about the most notable victories of The Last Stylebender. You're watching MMA Rocket, so get ready and we're on. The young New Zealand fighter with an impeccable 13-0 record has already had 2 UFC fights. Israel stormed into the league with a bang and created a real buzz with his charisma and skills. The company had many masters of striking technique, but there hadn't been a fighter this masterful for years. He started his UFC journey with 2 wins, one by knockout and one by split decision over prospective title contender Marvin Vettori. The fighter was gaining popularity, and UFC decided to give Izzy the opportunity to lead the tournament against number 8 ranked Brad Tavares, a UFC veteran who has been competing with mixed success since 2010 and was on a 4-fight winning streak at the time. A decent challenge for a potential star, and it was about time to see how much of the anime fan's striking works against ranked opponents. At one point, it was reported that the opponent had withdrawn due to injury, but all this turned out to be just a rumor and nothing more.
Right now, we're on track to have a fight, but what was going through your mind while all that was going on?
You never know. They're still young, you know, shit can happen, but okay, went to the gym, that was it. Didn't really skip a heartbeat, didn't bat an eyelid. I just kept doing what I was gonna do anyway.
The fight was secured and training continued. The fighters gave many interviews and Izzy was more active. He was confident and often made fiery speeches about his strength and confidence, which amused Brad a little.
You seem almost amused by the way he carries himself.
Yeah, I am. I get a kick out of it. It's one of 2 things. He's extremely delusional, which that could be it. Or 2, he's just one of those guys that needs to like tell himself over and over and over, like look at himself in the mirror and say, hey, you're the man. I'm the greatest. I can beat this guy.
Fans watched the potential star of the company and rapidly increased his popularity. UFC organized an open training session for the non-numbered tournament, which gave Israel a demonstrative masterclass in striking techniques with dance music and entertained the crowd well. The fight was put in the main event of TUF 27 finale in Las Vegas. The first round was a warm-up and the most competitive of the entire fight. Izzy worked moderately and preferred to keep his distance, while Brad shortened the distance and chased the damage. After the first round, the fight slowly turned out to be one-sided. Adesanya was taking the initiative and outworking his opponent using skills. Tavares had fewer and fewer chances, while Izzy was growing more confident. He landed punches, kicks, knees, and elbows, and even tried a few submissions. And Adesanya won with 49-46 by one judge and 50-45 by the other judges.
Israel, the Last Stylebender, Adesanya!
A truly confident victory over a tough opponent. After the win, he expressed his willingness to fight top 5 fighters.
I've been a legit contender before I got in this division and before I got in the UFC. So we're ready to face the top 5, the top 10 straight away.
After defeating a ranked opponent, Israel was ranked number 9 of the middleweight division. He gained momentum and the league gave him a new highly rated opponent, Derek Brunson, who was ranked number 6. He established himself as a tough fighter, having fought back in Strikeforce and in UFC after the buyout of the organization. He often alternated between winning and losing streaks, but he was always in top 5. In addition, his fighting style was ideally suited to create maximum problems for Adesanya. Derek had a solid wrestling base, which he actively uses in every fight. But unexpectedly, a conflict arose between the fighters, and it was Israel's opponent who was the most active. According to both fighters, they met long before the fight.
You're staring across from Israel Adesanya right now, but he won't look at you.
I don't know what's going on, man. I thought we had this little rivalry, but
where does this rivalry stem from exactly?
I fought Dan Kelly in Auckland, and he's from New Zealand, and he came up to me. He was like, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm at Israel. I'm DC's training partner." And I was like, "All right, cool." And I kept it moving, and he took it as, "Hey, this guy tried to big time me. He knew who I was. Oh, he's coming. He's next in my division." That's kind of where it stemmed from.
The fight was put on the big numbered card at UFC 230, headlined by Cormier and Lewis. The fans were excited. A fight between a hype Israel against a top opponent with tough wrestling skills is a worthy test, and there was also the conflict between the fighters that needed to be resolved in the cage. At the press conference, they put on a little show and exchanged pleasantries during the stare-down. Except the main event, it was the most anticipated fight, a people's main event. Izzy entered the fight as the favorite and fully justified the status. Brunson tried to wrestle since the very beginning, but it didn't work out well for him. Izzy defended against all the takedown attempts and began to accelerate. Brunson got desperate and started breaking the rules, grabbing his opponent's shorts and holding him onto the net, getting reprimanded by the ref. At the end of the round, Israel pressed Derek and stunned him with the high kick and finished him. His 4th UFC victory in less than a year and top 5 ranking in the weight division.
Paul also called you the best striker in the UFC right now at the end of the broadcast. You feel that way?
Yeah, I feel that way, but I'm the best fighter. I want to prove I'm the best fighter.
The legendary Spider Silva once held the UFC belt and still holds the record for most defenses at the middleweight division and overall winning streak in the organization. Back in 2019, once the strongest fighter in the world had extremely tough time and only won once against Derek Brunson in his most recent fights. He had spent 2 years off the cage. For his comeback, he decided to fight a rising star who was believed to be a future champion. Israel didn't turn down the fight, as it was a great opportunity to compete with his childhood idol.
For me, this is like the best fight. This is the fight that I've been looking for. I didn't even know I want, because I get to fight the guy that brought me into the game, and I get to take him out of the game.
Since his signing, Izzy has often been compared with the great fighter. Similar styles, accurate techniques, charisma, and they had to fight each other. Before the fight, there was no trash talk or anything like that. Both respected each other and wanted to show a beautiful fight for the fans of the sport. And besides that, Dana officially stated at the press conference that this fight has contender status.
Yeah, this is for the #1 contender position. This is it. This is for the #1 contender spot. Yeah.
The fight took place in Australia at UFC 234, which was headlined by that country's representative and middleweight division champion Robert Whittaker against #4 ranked Kevin Gastelum. Everything was going well, but at the last minute the champion couldn't make in the weigh-in. He had health issues and UFC had to make a new main event. The Anderson Silva and Israel 3-round fight became the main event. The fighters had the stare down, and after that there was a touching speech in which Anderson thanked all the fans and the company for the opportunity to fight. It was time, and we saw a masterclass of striking technique from the two fighters. Izzy had many times stated that he grew up on Silva's fights and learned from him. By and large, it was a great teacher and students fight. Everyone was thrilled, including the UFC management.
I'm the #1 contender. I'm the guy fighting for the belt. I don't care, Kelvin or Rob, whoever it is, I'm fighting for the belt next. That's all I know.
After Adesanya defeated Anderson, Kelvin Gastelum came into the cage with the championship belt. He declared himself champion after Robert dropped out of the fight, but Izzy strongly disagreed with that. Whittaker was out for an indefinite period of time, so the organization decided to introduce an interim champion title while the real one healed his wounds. Israel had an advantage in size over his future opponent as well as in skills. Gastelum had previously fought at welterweight, and even there he was not particularly big, and he got lost compared to other fighters in the heavier category. But he had something our protagonist didn't have: knockout power. He knocked out Tim Kennedy, then in the first round destroyed the former champion Michael Bisping, who had just lost his belt.
Is this the toughest fight of your career?
No. This will be one of the toughest fights of my career, but not the toughest. He's got a few weapons, very limited, not like me. I've got a whole range of weapons, but the few weapons he has, he uses them very well.
The bout was set 2 months later in the co-main event of UFC 236. Kelvin had more experience and tough background that he mentioned a lot.
You know, I don't think he's been through the fire that I've been through and hasn't fought the quality of opponents that I have.
The UFC organized a press conference. The tournament was headlined by a featherweight bout between Holloway and Poirier for the interim title. The co-main event was the fight of tonight's heroes against Kelvin. It was a pretty high-profile tournament due to the big names in both the main and co-main events. A lot of attention was focused not only on the featherweight champ, but also on Israel.
You said that word, momentum. Momentum's a powerful force. It keeps on rolling. And April 13th, I'm going to roll over Kelvin.
Both fighters were confident in victory and the chances were roughly equal, though Israel was the slight favorite. He had a huge advantage in height, reach, and technique. But in the first round, it turned out that Kelvin was ready for that and he was cutting the distance perfectly, getting his opponent with the left cross. In the middle of the round, he pounced on Israel and got him with the powerful right hook that knocked the hero back to the net. For the rest of the round, Izzy worked with single jabs and low kicks. In the second round, Adesanya initially worked at his usual pace, but in the middle of the round, he knocked his opponent down and repeated his success in the last minute with a John Jones-style spinning elbow. The third round was a competitive one. Both were hitting and shaking each other well. Kelvin even took Izzy down one time, but he got up quickly. The fourth round passed with plenty of exchanges and a lot of activities from both fighters. It was noticeable that Gastelum had already wasted his energy, and that had a big impact on round 5. Israel gathered his strength and in the final round delivered a brilliant performance, winning the fight with character and tenacity, knocking his opponent down several times and getting close to the finish as possible. A unanimous decision for Adesanya, an interim title, Fight of the Year award for multiple reputable publications. It was the toughest fight of his career. Next in line was champion Robert Whittaker. Israel had 5 winning fights in the year, and after the toughest fight of his career, he took a short break and a unification bout against the champion was scheduled for UFC 243 in Australia in October 2019. Izzy's hype grew even stronger because his charisma was supplemented by the strength of an elite fighter who could really live up to people's expectations and become a champion. Robert was fully healed from his injuries and ready to defend the champion's throne. But what were Whittaker's chances? The champion started his UFC career not very well in the welterweight division, but then moved up to middleweight and showed all he could do, outboxing a huge number of top fighters of his time, including Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, Derek Brunson, Ronaldo Souza, and twice Yoel Romero. None of Israel's previous opponents had such a record or skill set. Robert was still a top puncher, so their fight was so intriguing. They took part in the summer 2019 press conference, and that's when we saw that Israel was a bit hostile towards the champion. According to him, Robert posted some meme that offended Israel. Rob didn't understand the claims and, in his usual manner, tried to shut the conflict down.
He's got a very dangerous skill set. I don't believe I've been talking that much. I don't know what I did to upset him, but I think it's going to be a killer fight.
The fight was approaching, and Izzy continued to advertise it. It was obvious Robert felt uncomfortable in such an environment, while Izzy was full of confidence. The bout was near, the hype was growing every day. Israel was assuring people of his victory, but Rob was not very active in the media. When the fight day came, Israel decided to entertain the audience with dance while walking to the octagon, ending with a Naruto anime move in front of the enormously crowded arena. Rob came out wearing the traditional black hood, embodying his nickname, the Reaper. The fight itself turned out as beautifully for Izzy as his dance. At first, it was the champ who set the pace. He made sharp attacks and lunged at Israel with punches. Adesanya did not take any action in the first half of the round and only started to pick up the pace, throwing more and more punches and even knocked Robert down at the end of the round. But he was saved by the bell. Robert kept making the same mistakes in the second round, for which he was brutally punished with a killing combination straight to the jaw. The new middleweight champion, and his name is Israel Adesanya. For a long time, Izzy was compared to Anderson Silva not only for his style, but also for his potential. He could hold the title for a long time, but the man who can lose the whole fight but then still win by knockout has emerged. Though his last defense wasn't the most spectacular, no one doubts that he cleaned out half of the division, and now he's going to get his belt back in the fourth fight against Alex Pereira. We'll wait for this fight, but in the meantime, we suggest you check out the rest of the videos on our channel. Write your opinion in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.